We are here at the Missouri Botanical Garden, one of my favorite spots in St. Louis. We are looking currently at the pretty new entrance right now, which looks very sleek and modern. Used to have kind of an 80s Epcot-esque entrance that I really liked, but I totally get it. So I'm gonna show you everything that I love about this area. It's around 8 in the morning, and there's just so many cool things inside this really cool place in St. Louis that let's go inside. It's cool to see that things are starting to come in here, as early on this looked pretty just like a bunch of dirt, but you can see they've really done a good job of trying to build up this area and make it feel like a really cool botanical garden entrance. There's a long way to go, but it's really building up quickly here. When I say this reminds me of Epcot, this is definitely the best example. This is the Climatron. Think about the land pavilion if you walked around and just saw a lot of the plants. There's not as many things you eat in there, obviously, but there's waterfalls in there, there's bridges, and it's just one of the coolest things here. It opened in the 70s, and I mean, look at that. It reminds me a lot of Spaceship Earth with the Buckminster Fuller geodesic dome. Not the same way, because this has obviously the more normal structure at the bottom, but really just one of the coolest spots here. It's not open because we are here during the early morning. Member and city and county residents get to come in for free, which I love because it's not as crowded. But we can't go inside this time, but man, it's something special. I'm gonna have to do a separate video just about the Climatron in the future. Another thing I really like is this temperate house, basically, which almost feels like completely different vegetation. It's not the same at all as the Climatron, which, if you can see over here, is just nearby. Not open yet, they're redoing it. I love they have this kind of weird setup with like Roman columns inside and everything. So we're running out of time with the summer, but I'm hoping this opens soon because, again, it's another kind of cool indoor area with completely different look from the Climatron and even the rest of the garden. So this is the Missouri Botanical Garden, but for a long time it was known as Shaw's Garden, named after Henry Shaw. And it's a little creepy here, but this area is the mausoleum where he was actually buried. What I really like is just how quiet this area is. I mean, very few people are like, let's go to the mausoleum here and check it out. And you can walk around here, get a very good view of the statue, obviously where he is laid to rest, of Henry Shaw, but also just kind of enjoy this little area. You got some really nice benches. And, you know, I sound very much like an old man. I'm actually 48 years old. But I will say that while I love like the hubbub of Disney or Universal or amusement parks, there is something to be said, especially in your own town, of just going to places like this and hanging out. The fact that this is 10 minutes from my house is crazy. And I'll show you some more areas coming up that even more, I'm just like, wait, this is in the middle of St. Louis City, about 5 minutes from downtown. It's crazy. So here's a closer look at the statue in this mausoleum, which was constructed of rose granite in 1885. Oh my goodness. Just, I mean, look at the stained glass as you come up here. Just, Henry Shaw had some money. That's what I will tell you. We'll cover that more later. I mean, this whole garden was set up to be like next to his country home. So, I mean, hey, it ended up being great for the city, and I'm glad it's still thriving, but here you got if you want something a little morbid here beyond just the happy gardens. And if you really have a connection to Henry Shaw, you can even sit in his bench right here. He's just saying, hey, come and sit down. It's a little creepy. I feel like I've watched too much Doctor Who. He's just gonna attack me when I sit down, but there is Henry Shaw's bench. And I mentioned the Henry Shaw Country Home. That is this building, now known as the Tower Grove House. You can actually sit and look at it from the bench we saw a minute ago. And this is a public viewed place. You could go in, not at this exact moment, but you can go in. If you're interested in the history, this is the place to go. They have some kind of cool exhibits. They have a little few weird setup bedrooms that are a little creepy, I will say. They keep it open. They also decorate it for the holidays. So if you want to come here and experience kind of the history of the area more than just some pretty gardens, the Tower Grove House is the place to go. This is a really cool observatory called the Piper Observatory. It's meant to mirror things that actually were in the garden in the 19th century, late 19th century, like 1870s. Unfortunately, you used to be able to go up high and see the view, probably due to safety reasons. Who knows what kids were doing up there, climbing over things, whatever, but it's been closed to go up there for a long time. Every time I walk by and think, maybe this time I'll get to go up there because it has some really cool views. But even so, it's kind of a nice little area in the garden looking back to the history. Also, very close to the observatory is this hedge maze. It's not hard to find your way out, but especially it was really fun when we had younger kids. You can almost imagine you are, well, I hate to say The Shining. It's nothing creepy like that. But you know, there's movies, even Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, or something like that, and it's just a fun way to try and find your way out. Now I'm gonna say this, and I will probably get stuck and not be able to find my way, but it's generally not that hard. You can see it's grown up a little bit, but again, it's another kind of feature of Victorian gardens. There's the observatory to give you kind of your bearings. Just another fun way to experience the garden with some cool nature. This is another area that I really like. It's especially great for the summer, and it's the English Woodland Garden, which essentially, it's like you went into this massive area with trails, with little rock paths and everything, and it's just in the middle of the garden. It's just, we're literally steps away, as you'll see in a few minutes, from the Japanese garden. And I mentioned the Climatron kind of having that different type of rainforest, and then there's the temperate area. And then we have kind of what you might expect, just with these giant trees and little babbling brooks and creeks and everything else. It's just another cool area that, I mean, on a really hot day especially, you can just go sit on a bench and hang out, and you don't feel like you're in the middle of humid, hot St. Louis. So I mentioned the Japanese garden. This is a massive area. You can't really tell, but on a normal day, if like after opening hours, when it's like in the 60s, this area would just be mobbed with people. There's just so many little nooks and crannies. It definitely reminds me of Epcot's Japan Pavilion, but you can't really get a good grasp of the scale because there's so many little nooks and crannies around, which we'll go to one in a minute. It's just a really cool area, and definitely the biggest and most popular area in the park. So I mentioned a lot of the nooks and crannies. This is a perfect example. There's just a stone path that takes you in a lot of different directions. Here it's blocked off from the rest of the island, but it gives you a better view here of just the scale of this entire area. Again, it reminds myself, I'm just like, really? This is just like in the middle of St. Louis City. I mean, just look at all the various details and everything else as you come around here. And I'm just kind of standing in the middle here, and it's too bad. They used to let you years ago kind of go on this other island. It's pretty rare now. I have not seen it happen. I don't think they do. Again, kind of similar to the lighthouse. I think they just felt like they had to kind of set a few boundaries. But when I was a kid, we just had free reign, which is probably a good reason why maybe they changed it. Just a quick reminder that when you are in this type of garden, don't pick the fruits and vegetables. This is not an apple orchard. This is not a place to pick it, just in case. But again, just look at all this here. It's very enticing. Don't pick it. I love this idea of the garden for all. I mean, this is a particular garden where they give you some tools, a memorial garden, but just that idea really sticks with me when you're thinking about this whole place, because I feel like it's kind of a city resource and just a really cool area that, you know, doesn't get enough just due. And I guess maybe that's a good thing, because if it did, it would be even more crowded. But just look at all these plants. I mean, these are everywhere. It's crazy. Another area you don't want to sleep on is the Chinese garden. I know the Japanese garden is the bigger, more exciting one, but this is a really cool area too. And there's it's a little more relaxing, but if you're trying to escape the crowds, especially on a busy day, this is definitely the place to go. It's right in the middle of the park and has multiple entrances and outlets, and just has some really nice seating and great water features. So I am back in the Mausoleum Garden. As you can see, Tower Grove House right behind me. Well, I will say, just as a recommendation, if you come here, even with the shade and everything, I'm here early in the morning and it is maybe 80 degrees and it's still just brutal. So bring a water bottle. They have a lot of refilling stations everywhere. It's really easy to stay hydrated, but this place can surprise you because there's a lot of shade, but still, St. Louis in the summer is quite humid. But I will say, in the fall and spring, like if you come here November on and then up through, you know, like April, May, it's gorgeous. And every season has different things too. Like they have a really cool setup called the Garden Glow, which they light up the whole garden, which is really cool around the holidays. And they've done other special events. They have a music festival in the summer, which again can be pretty hot, but just a lot of cool stuff beyond just the day-to-day. And it's pretty reasonable to get in. Membership is really cheap, and they also have a lot of free days if you're a St. Louis City or County resident. But even so, it's not that expensive, and there's a lot to offer. Special events. They got the Japanese festival coming up soon. A lot of cool stuff beyond just your basics, but it's a really cool place. Well, I hope you enjoyed this quick little morning tour to Missouri Botanical Garden. Here's another shot of the awesome Climatron from the front view of it. It was really fun, and you should definitely check out, it's known as MOBOT or Missouri Botanical Garden. Some people still call it Shaw's Garden from back when it was called that. It's a really cool place, and I think you're gonna have a great time. And you know, when you go to St. Louis, you've done your Cardinal game and the St. Louis Zoo and Six Flags. It's another place. You can do it in a few hours. There's plenty to see. If you have any questions about it, leave it in the comments below. I'll definitely respond. I come here almost every week. It's a really cool place in St. Louis that deserves a lot more attention, and I would love for you to check it out.